welcome back to my Kitten Reads, and this is a review of Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Yes, me doing a review video. It doesn't happen very often for a single book, but I did forget to do a Friday Reads this week, so I needed something to do, and I've literally finished this 10 minutes ago. I do have notes, but yeah, I only finished it about 10 minutes ago. I was pushing to finish it because it was due back to the library yesterday, so I want to drop it off when I go out later, but yeah, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. So, what did I think about it? Well, to start with, you know me, I have my goals for the year. Rebecca Roanhorse is a Indigenous American author, a First Nations author, so that meets my author's not Caucasian goal. And this book definitely has queerness in it. So, it's a fairly complexly built world. But one of the main characters, Ziala, she is probably, she doesn't say, but bi, because she talks about sleeping with men and women. So, I would assume bi, possibly pan. Labels don't seem to be a huge thing in this particular world, although it is a complex world in that there are countries that accept that kind of thing, and there are countries where it's literally illegal, and that's where we meet Ziala in prison, having been arrested for sleeping with a woman. So she's there in the city of Tova. Pronouns Z get used, particularly for Iktan, who is a priest, the priest of knives. So there's gender neutral pronouns and variations on gender, so that's good. There are other mentions as well of variations on gender, so that's good. And Naranpa, who is the sun priest, has had a previous relation with Iktan, so clearly not entirely straight herself. So yes, there's plenty of queer stuff in it too, so this is an excellent book for my goals. The other main character that I haven't mentioned yet is Serapio. And Serapio is blind, purposefully blinded by his mother, because his mother essentially created him to be the reborn crow god, to be the vessel for the crow god. And this whole book has a sense of inevitability about it, because every chapter is dated, and is dated as how long it is until the convergence, which happens at the end of the book. So we spend the entire book leading up to this massive event, the convergence, and we know it's coming. Everybody's timelines are quite different. So for example, for Serapio, we go right back to his childhood, and so his dated are often like 17 years until convergence, 3 years until convergence, that kind of thing. Ziala, essentially we only meet 20 days before convergence, and the same with the various characters in Tova, we only meet sort of 20 days before convergence. And so they are a lot more hurried, and so it's 20 days, 19 days, but again, they're not always at the same day at the same time in the narrative. So the timelines are very varied, but each person's story is being told as it needs to be told in relation to the convergence. So the convergence is going to be this big event where the sun and the moon and the planets are all aligned on winter solstice, and there's a prophecy, because prophecy of the crow god that he will come back and eat the sun god, and everything will be flipped. Amongst all of this, because there are 4 clans in Tova, which is where all this stuff is going to happen, and where all the religious stuff is. And there's this event that keeps getting talked about, the Night of Knives, where in revenge for one attack by the Carrion Crow people, the priesthood of the knives came down and slaughtered their people. And so part of this is, part of what's weaving through this prophecy is wanting vengeance. Wanting vengeance or justice, people refer to it differently, and there is some discussion in the book about the difference between vengeance and justice from different perspectives. You know, and it all is sort of based around this seething kind of resentment by the carrion crow, and there's this underground group of cultists who believe in the coming of the crow god, and there's a small group that has actually been putting this in place, and you've got Serapio. Basically, he is, and he knows that from the start of the book, he is the vessel for the sun god, and he has started his journey to the Convergence, and he has to reach Tova by the Convergence, which is where he comes into contact with Ziela, who's a ship captain. And yeah, and there's some romance between them, but it's like, it's also a doomed romance. Like, she doesn't realize until towards the end that it's doomed, because until he finally tells her his purpose. But yeah, so complex world, a lot of stuff about justice and vengeance, and also outcasts, because all the main characters really are outcasts, because Naranpa, she is the sun priest, but she didn't come from one of the so-called Sky-Maid clans. She came from the Dry Earthers, and she came from the Moor, which is basically the slums. So she doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the priests. Ziala is a Teak, hated by people mostly outside of the Teak nation, but also no longer accepted in the Teak nation. She has her own kind of sea powers. I should have mentioned perhaps that this is Rebecca Roanhorse's attempt at epic fantasy, and that I liked it. I'm just going into it. So yeah, and so the outcast Serapio is an outcast because of what his mother did to him as a child before killing herself, and because of his destiny. So it's about outcasts, vengeance, prophecy, and the thing is, by the end, I won't say it ends abruptly, because you know the end is coming, but it's also kind of unexpected as well. And it's cliffhanger. So there's obviously another book to come in the series at least. It's a cliffhanger. I won't say what the cliffhanger is, but we get to the day of the Convergence. Shit hits the fan, and whoops, I swore. But anyway, and then our main characters are left hanging in the balance, essentially. And it just stops. Just bang, stopped. And I went, oh, okay. So that's Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. It is good. I won't say I'm completely in love with it. It wasn't one of those ones that really, like, I connected too deeply with the characters, but I really enjoyed it once I actually got myself going on reading it, because I was being very procrastinating. Oh, there's a new word, procrastinating. But once I got going, like, it's very engaging, and very enjoyable, not too difficult to read, dark, but dark in a way that doesn't drag you down with it, if you know what I mean. But well worth a read. I quite enjoyed it, and I will definitely read the sequel when it comes out. Yeah, this was also on the Hugo novel list in 2021. Didn't, of course, I actually put it on hold in April in 2021 because it was on the Hugo novel list, and it didn't turn up until 2 weeks ago. So it's obviously really popular if it's been had so many holds on it. So, but yeah, definitely worth a read. And it's nice to see epic fantasy that's not from a Caucasian European perspective. I mean, the entire, like, it feels like an epic fantasy novel, but it's an epic fantasy novel that also feels like it's not white. It's like, I mean, they never really talk about the race of the people in it, but like crow gods and sky gods and animal totemism kind of things, and the waves, and you know, it's just, it doesn't draw on any specific sort of Native American legend that I can tell, but it's got that kind of feel to it. So yeah, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Thoroughly recommend. And I will see you all again really soon. Bye.